Hi everyone, happy July 1st. Happy Canada Day to all of my Canadian viewers. Because it's summer, I decided we're going to do a little bit of retired eats today. Something that I really enjoy in the summer is a lot of salads and even sandwiches. I love sandwiches. I thought today I would show you how I make my hummus and what I do with my hummus. And also, in order to make the hummus, I'd like to show you how I make my chickpeas from scratch. Essentially what I do is I start off with dried chickpeas. I don't use the canned ones. I find when you make your own, they taste better. You can make as much as you want, and the hummus just comes out with a nicer texture. So my formula for making chickpeas from scratch is so simple. You will love this. This is not my own method. I have learned this from Alton Brown. I don't know if you all remember Alton Brown. He is this scientific, extraordinary cooking expert that had a show at one time on television. I love his method for making dried chickpeas. Not everyone has an Instant Pot, but I would guess that a lot of us have a slow cooker hanging around somewhere. I make my chickpeas in the slow cooker. The formula is simple. I essentially take 1 pound of chickpeas and I rinse them and get rid of any of the ones that don't look great. I don't soak them, nothing like that. You just put the dried chickpeas that have been rinsed into the slow cooker, 1 pound. And to 1 pound of chickpeas, you will add 7 cups of water and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And I will leave the link to Alton's recipe or method, because I'm not sure it's even a recipe, in my description box, because it is his method. And so my motto is go right to the source. And then all I do is, once this is in my slow cooker, is I set it to slow and I slow cook it for 8 hours. In his recipe, he said you can set it on high and do it for 4 hours. I do prefer the 8 hours on slow method, but honestly, if you're pressed for time, the 4 hours works great, and they are still better tasting and a better texture than out of the can. Next, we're going to go on to my very simple hummus recipe. I use one of these small food processors in order to make my hummus, but you don't need to. You can use a masher, like a potato masher, if you make the chickpeas the way that I explained, because the homemade chickpeas are a little bit softer and butterier than the ones you buy in the can. All you would do differently is that you would use hot water when you're mashing it. You can also do it in a magic bullet. You can do it in a blender, whatever you have. I have this little mini food processor, and that's what I'm going to use. So I take 1 cup of chickpeas, and these are still warm, so I'm going to use warm water, but you don't need to. If they're still warm, you can just, add in water. So 1 cup of chickpeas. I'm going to add in 1/3 cup of water. Then I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of olive oil to start. I may need to add some later. I don't know yet, but I'm going to start with 2 tablespoons. So I just add it in straight into my little food processor. So there's my 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Now this is where I veer from the original recipe. I will put the original recipe in my description box, but it asks to add the juice of 1 lemon. And I have 1.5 lemons in here, freshly squeezed. Please don't use that bottled stuff, but if that's all you have, go ahead and use it, but the fresh is better. I'm not going to put all of this in again because I want to see how it tastes. Like when I get everything blended up, I'm going to try it, see how I like it. So I'm going to put in maybe just a little bit more than half of it. Next is 2 cloves of crushed garlic. Now, you're putting this in a food processor. You don't have to crush them, but I find that I like to pre-crush my garlic so that you don't get like little lumps in there. And if you prefer having a little bit more garlic, then go ahead and do that. Sometimes I like mine a little more garlicky, so I'll add in more than 2. The next thing we're going to add is half a teaspoon of salt and ground cumin. I don't like things to be too salty, so I just do a scant half a teaspoon, like not quite, and then I can adjust later if I want. I do like a nice amount of cumin though. Next, I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of black ground pepper. If you use the grinder kind, just like grind it in, but I kind of like to do the pre-ground for this. Just find that it's a little bit finer so you get less kind of pepper grit in the hummus. And then I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of tahini. This is not kind of the best tahini. I think the best tahini is the one that you buy in these little barrels in the Middle Eastern stores, but this is what my grocery store had. And I'm all about just shopping your grocery store. So I'm just doing this tahini and it'll be perfect. So that is it. And I am going to process it up. I just do it at like full speed. I do a little bit of pulsing, and I also scrape this down to make sure that everything gets mixed properly. I am going to add about a half a cup of chickpeas to this, actually 1/3 cup of chickpeas, because it's a little bit thin. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this will thicken in the fridge, so don't go crazy with this, but kind of eyeball it. So I think my chickpeas are just really soft, and so I'm going to add 1/3 cup in. All right, I'm going to check it. Ooh, this is looking really good. I don't think I can really, let me just show you with some B-roll what kind of consistency I am looking at here. So as you can see, this is like nice and thick. And I like mine to have a little bit more of a coarser consistency, but you can definitely make it less coarse. And I'm not adding anything to this. This looks absolutely perfect and it tastes really good. Now, I like to put this in a bowl and stick it in the fridge for usually a couple of hours if you have the time, or at least an hour, because what I want is I want the flavors to really meld. I want the hummus to thicken up a little bit. So I just wrap a little saran wrap around it and I'm going to stick it in the fridge. And then through the miracle of video, I will come right back to show you what to do with it. All right, the hummus is ready. So I will be showing you a few dishes that I make with it. I'll show you how I serve it with just some plain veggies. Then I will make my favorite sandwich using the hummus as a spread and all kinds of yummy, delicious things on it. And finally, I will make a chickpea salad, which I'm going to be using the chickpeas that I made for, along with some quinoa and some other delicious ingredients. And I will serve that salad with some roasted chicken tenders for dinner. One of the easiest ways to serve this is with some veggies. What I typically do is add a little bit of paprika on the top. The next thing I really enjoy doing with my hummus is I absolutely love it on sandwiches. So what I do is I just take a really good dollop of the hummus with a little bit of the paprika in it. And I spread it liberally on top of my bread. The next thing I'm going to put on is some really lovely tomato. And I like to put 2 big slices. I'm also going to put some avocado on it. I'm going to put a little bit of salt on top of all of that. Then on top of this, I'm going to put some pea shoots. Then on top of that, I'm going to put some basil. Squish it all down. And on top of that, I'm going to put some Swiss cheese, which is my favorite on sandwiches. And then to make it extra yummy, I'm going to put a little bit more hummus on the other slice. Maybe not as much. I just wanted to kind of act as a bit of a glue for my sandwich. And that's it. Yum. This is so good. It looks amazing. The final thing I am going to show you what I do with my chickpeas is I make this salad, and I love making this salad because it keeps really well in the fridge. I can't really say I have like a recipe. I will put down what I used, but really it's kind of a combination of whatever. So I take some chickpeas and I just, I don't know, maybe like, in this case, I'm probably going to put like a little less than a cup because I don't want this sitting in my fridge forever. So I'm going to put some chickpeas, probably around a cup or so. I'm going to take some cucumber, chopped cucumber, and put that in there. I have some chopped pepper, red and orange in this case, because that is what I had in the fridge. I have some chopped baby tomatoes. I had some olives in the fridge, so I'm going to put those in because I think that would be pretty good. Lots of green onion. I also had some cooked quinoa, so I am going to put some of that in there, just like a couple of huge tablespoons. Let's mix it and see how it all looks. I think that's pretty nice. I want it to be just really fresh and yummy. I'm going to serve this with some roasted chicken tenders. I'm going to put a little bit of salt, some black pepper, and this time I'm going to grind some, and I can put some in, like I can put some on once I actually serve it as well. I'm going to put in about a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. And I had this leftover half of a lemon, so I'm going to squeeze that in. And I don't know, I have some basil. I have this basil plant that you may have seen as I'm filming this. What I do with my basil is I just kind of roll it up like into this little like cigar type roll. That's the only way I can explain it. And then I just chop it up. And I'm going to throw it in. And I'm doing this just because I had the basil. You can put thyme, you can do like whatever you have. I'm going to put this in the fridge because I like this kind of a salad to sit for a bit and just kind of get all of its flavors happening. And then I'll show you how I serve it up later. All right, so this is ready to go. I'm going to give it a stir, and all I do is just plate it up. I put some of the chicken tenders with it. Serve it with a couple of slices of lemon. And for garnish, I just do a couple of leaves of basil. And this is ready to go. Amazing. All right, so those are all of my various dishes that I made with my dried chickpeas that I then reconstituted and used in making hummus and then my salad. So this is it for this week. Typically I would have this kind of video on a Saturday, but things got kind of turned around, and I will have a full-on, introspective video on Saturday. So I would love it if you tune into that and watch. I know it's summer, viewership is down because everyone is enjoying the great weather, and I totally don't blame them because I have not been watching a lot of YouTube either. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed the recipes, and I will see you all on Saturday. Bye!